you're probably thinking to yourself, wait a minute, I'm supposed to hear a 1 and a 2 and a chick-a-boom a chick as your intro. What's this bad boys thing? Well, you will have to actually listen to the duration of this podcast to understand the joke that we have in this bad boys thing. Because you got a couple bad boys here. You got Spencer Powell and you got Kyle Hunt here on Remodelers on the Rise. Today we talk about kind of a little bit of a cascade of different ideas, and we zeroed in and we're pushing you to implement and to try new things and hopefully to inspire you with some good content ideas that you can implement into your remodeling business during these COVID times and, as you'll hear, post-COVID times in the years to come. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks a lot for listening. Hey, and if you're listening, after you're done listening to this, can you leave a review on whatever podcast tool you're listening to? It just takes a minute, and I'd appreciate it. Thanks. Okay, we are live for another. I'm live. Spencer's live. You're listening to a recording, but here we are, I should say, for another episode of Remodelers on the Rise, and I have friend and colleague Spencer Powell with Builder Funnel. How are you, Spencer?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm good. Don't tell anybody, but we were both kind of saying I'm in Michigan. It's April 30th, and you're out in Colorado. And I was like, "Oh, you're at your office. Are you supposed to be there?" Both of us. If you followed Kyle Hunt and Spencer Powell for a while, you know we kind of live on the edge. We're kind of wild childs.
We're crazy.
If you've gotten to know us, and here we are breaking the law. Both of us have gone from our quarantined homes to our silent offices away from our homes.
See, Kyle, I've already found us a loophole so that we can feel better about it.
What's
Technically, that? I feel like we're media companies. You got a podcast, your media, that's essential business.
Oh, that's an interesting thought. When I was walking up the steps to my office, I was kind of thinking, well, if the cop pulls up and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm just going to say, "I'm doing payroll." Because here in Michigan, if you're doing payroll, then you're like an essential employee, but that would be fibbing. Because it turns out I'm recording a podcast today, and I'm recording a podcast with you. And in particular, a very kind of focused podcast, might not be super long, but it's going to be super focused on what type of content should remodelers be creating and posting and putting out there during this time. We're kind of 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 weeks, depending on where you're at into this whole COVID thing and the pandemic and the quarantine. We're starting to see some signs of it leveling off and maybe getting a little bit better. And there's some states that are starting to open certain things. But the message of what type of content should be out there now is probably still going to be true weeks from now. And what we were kind of talking about, maybe our first thought is, this type of content might be what we still need to be posting years from now. So maybe put some context into your thoughts on that. We were talking about it a little bit before we hit the record button.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because anytime you hit a global pandemic, but anytime you hit something that causes a big shift in the way we're doing things, you see this rapid adoption of new, whatever that is. And so it's been interesting for me to watch this. And like you said, as we were talking before, we've, for the last decade, been taking the approach of, hey, as you're creating content, whether that's social media, it's blog posts, it's website, just pages and information, videos, be helpful. Basically talk about something that your prospects are interested in, something that's going to educate them as they're researching, doing a project. And it's funny right now, I think people are saying, "Oh, I don't know if I want to be marketing and pushing myself that hard or selling that hard because I want to be sensitive." Well, if you've always been taking the approach of I'm just trying to help, and by that very nature of helping, you start to pull people to you because you're being helpful, now you suddenly find yourself with more business opportunities. So I think that's the general context of what we kind of wanted to talk about today. But it is interesting. Just I think it kind of gives this style of marketing a push, which I think is a really good thing.
Yeah, and I echo what you're saying there. And shortly after everything, it was kind of like, oh crap, things are like shutting down, and like this is getting serious. I remember saying, like, people were asking, like, what type of content should I be putting out there? Should I be putting anything out there? And the thing that just down to my core of like, here's what you need to be putting out there. Think about this. What actually would be helpful to the person on the other end that's reading this? And then I remember I was on a little recording during that, and I was kind of like, by the way, that's what you should always be doing with your marketing. The more you are focused, and when you're writing things, when you're creating things on how does this actually serve and help the other person on the other line there, the better your content is. Now, some people would say, and I think we have a similar approach of like, sometimes that's a long-term approach. Marketing is getting someone who has a need to know, like, and trust you. Personally, I love to be building know, like, and trust and relationship and delivering value and serving and helping for years. And then all of a sudden somebody picks up the phone and is like, I've been listening to your podcast for years. I've been getting your emails for a long time. I've implemented some things. I'm finally ready, to need your services. And how true is that when you're talking about homeowners? People that if you can be in their world, you can be building relationship, building your expert status, know, like, and trust, serving them. When there's a need, they're going to think of you. So I echo what you're saying there of, this is an approach to marketing that, yes, we're going to talk some specifics about the here and now, but keep in mind that this type of content is actually the type of content you really want to be focused on. Yes, there's times to just say, this is what I offer. Do you want it? There's times to kind of right hook them like that, but not all the time. So maybe give some examples of what type of content, maybe some titles of, content, just some real practical ideas that people can kind of go, oh, I like that one. I could create a video like that. I could write some content on that. What are some ideas around that?
Yeah, well, I think, you always are thinking about what's going to be helpful, but then you're trying to be contextual. So we know everyone's at home right now, or most everybody is. And so, a good piece of content might be
the bad boys of the marketing world and remodelers. Kyle and Spencer aren't. Maybe that's going to be our new moniker, the bad boys.
Yeah, the bad boys of marketing. That's got a ring to it. We'll
it does have the ring to it. Carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. That was important. We needed to interject with that. So,
because sometimes it's interrupting like that and putting that moniker out there. Now all of a sudden that might stick, and that might be good for our business.
That's what we call test and measure in marketing, so we're testing it. Yeah.
All right. I promise not to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, let me jump back to your other point before we go into content. I liked what you said about building know, like, and trust over a period of time. And one of my favorite stories, just personal example, I had somebody attend a webinar, I think it was about 8 years ago now. And we talked after the webinar. They said, yeah, I think I'm ready to do some marketing. He kind of disappeared. Two years later, he resurfaced. He'd been following our blog, all of our stuff, our videos. We talked, and disappeared again, and basically it was a 6-year journey. We maybe had 3 phone calls, but the rest of the 6 years, he's just getting emails and getting blogs and just getting helpful stuff. So when he was ready, he wasn't talking to competitors. He didn't, it was just like, yep, I'm ready now. So yeah. I think that same thing translates to the remodeling space really, really well, which is you're never really going to, force somebody to do that kitchen remodel today if they're not truly ready. And so the whole premise is just be there, the whole time. But back to content ideas, thinking about people having to create makeshift home offices. Well, you might have some creative ideas as a remodeler and somebody that has some design skills or space skills in planning. Put out a few suggestions and a few ideas. Here's some creative ways to create that really good home office that we may need to be utilizing for the foreseeable future. Maybe some creative ways to maximize small spaces with design. And so you can put your skills to use. You're being helpful, but you're being contextual to the situation people are actually in. You may be going, well, that doesn't talk about remodeling. Well, no, it doesn't, but it brings somebody to your website and then they can see that you do remodeling and then they might subscribe to your newsletter or download something. And now you can continue to email them more helpful content. And suddenly they like you, they start to trust you. And then when they're actually ready to talk, it's a no-brainer. Who are they going to reach out to?
So let's pause on that one and kind of drill down deeper into that. So, how to design the perfect home office to actually get work done from home. That was actually kind of a title that you sent over to me, right? But that's kind of what you're talking about here. Yeah. How to design the perfect home office to actually get work done from home. Now, we'll talk about like okay, what would that content look like? We're going to brainstorm that here in a second. And then also we're going to talk about like where would we put that and what's the value of creating it. So I'll go first as far as like how could you go about creating this? You could create it in audio form. I don't want to get in front of the video, Kyle. Okay, pull out your iPhone, click on voice recorder, and just say, I wanted to record a couple minute audio with just some tips, 5 tips on how to design the perfect home office. You could do it that way. You could take a picture of a nice little design that you created in Chief Architect and just take a picture of that and say, and point out a couple things in that. Go ahead. What's some ideas that you have on how you could create that?
So 2 more. One, you could just write an article about it. So you could say, hey, and you could include some pictures, one or multiple. But even better, the idea I really love, and you don't even have to get in front of the camera, point the camera at how you set up your home office and talk somebody through it. Better yet, have somebody film you actually doing it in your home and say, hey, this is just one example, but here's like 3 things I did that you could do even if you have a different setup in your room. And then, yeah, in terms of where to put it, you know.
Hang on. We're still digging.
Whoa,
We're still digging.
too fast. All right.
Bounce it back to me. The other way you could do it, maybe you just go to House and you pull up 4 or 5 photos, or you pull up your photos of different projects that you've done of some of those built-ins, of some of those desks, and you just have them on your screen, and you download Loom, Loom, and you record a little picture, a little video of you, and on the screen, and say, you know, as remodelers, as folks who go into homes and really try to optimize the space and understand the needs of our clients. A hot topic right now is how to create the perfect home office. I pulled up 4 or 5 examples, some of work that we've done, some of work of others. And I wanted just to share some ideas that might get your mind going, because we're thinking that this might be a little bit of a new normal for a lot of people, and setting up a great home office would be very important. You know, and setting up a great home office here in Ann Arbor would be perfect, right? Some keywords in there. So there's so many different ways to approach it. I think sometimes we overthink it. I think sometimes we get intimidated by video. But those are some ideas to hopefully cause you to take some action. Now, Spencer, we are ready. Where do you post this, and what's the value of where you post it?
Yeah, so depending on the example that you're going to take, either some of the ones that Kyle spit out or that I did, you know, you've got written, so that can go on your blog, you know, as an article, and you can post that there, but then you can share it to social media. So you might share that on Facebook or on LinkedIn.
When I post that on my blog, what are some of the basic search engine optimization things that I'm going to want to create into that blog?
So title is a big one. Make sure you've got the topic and ideally the location in the title. So if it's, you know, 5 tips on setting up an excellent home office in Ann Arbor, Michigan, then you've got the
home
tips.
of the mighty Wolverines.
There,
I put that at the end too.
I would put that as a subtitle. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But then you've got the location, so you're narrowing down. You're not just trying to get this out to everybody. Although if somebody lands on it from Florida, you know, it doesn't hurt you. Yep. It helps them. But yeah, you want to obviously try to put some more focus to where you're attracting your audience. And then you've got the topic. So if people are looking up home office, you know, tips or design ideas or whatever, then you've got a shot at coming up on the site.
It. Good.
And then I would say, just from a, you know, content standpoint, write it so that it's helpful, you know, and don't just create a 300-word fluff piece, you know, put some detail in there, put some photos in there. If you want to get really techie, optimize your photos with that same keyword, rename the file. You know, we won't go too deep in the weeds from an SEO perspective, but title is the big one if you can.
Right. And the thought there is, I've got some keywords here that's actually, and it's an article that's actually helpful. It's got some city and location name to it, so that that starts getting ranked, and people maybe they're searching that, they come across our website, and what you were getting at earlier, now that they're at your website, they might see a little opt-in for a free report. They might see the newsletter. You know, if we've got it set up where, you know, they might get kind of tagged or cookied so that we can remarket to them. They might click on our Facebook page and like us there, because at the bottom of that blog post, it says, hey, if you like this, please feel free to follow us on, you know, on Facebook, or connect with us on you know, Instagram, right? That type of conversion.
Yeah. You're looking at that next step, you know, so once somebody's read the post, they've gotten some value, they're feeling good about you and what you've given to them, you want to take them to, a place where they can continually get updates from you, because they came from a Google search So you got that, happenstance of they were looking for the topic, they found your site, but if they just leave, who knows if they make it back.
Sure. But even then, right, they're seeing our logo.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully there's some residual there. One thing that, when we're talking about adding them to an email list, is the thought of, once you can get them to click that like button, once you can get them to get your email, to get the email address, maybe you've got a page on your website that is like how much, and it's related to kitchens and baths. And it's like, if you'd like to see kind of the good, better, best of what this costs, just put in your email address and zip code and you'll be taken right to the page. Maybe that's what you use to convert, people. But once they get on your email list, we want to make sure that one of the goals that we have just overall in our marketing efforts, and this is just kind of a little bit of an aside, but it ties to what we just talked about, is that we're consistently staying in touch with all of our previous clients, with prospects that reach out to us. Hey, remodeler, do you have an email list? One. And are you growing that this month? Have you added some new people to it? Is there more people that you're staying in touch with? Sometimes these basic fundamentals of marketing are often overlooked. We're looking for the fancy this, fancy that. So I just want to interject that.
Yeah, and I'll build on that a little bit, because that was one of the things I was hoping we'd spend a little bit of time on today is email. And I think that's one of the most important things you can be doing right now is staying in frequent communication with your database, whether that's past clients, prospects that didn't sign, vendors, whoever's on that kind of newsletter list that you have. But it's interesting because, again, a time like this says, oh, maybe we should increase the frequency a little bit of our communication. And I would argue, you almost can't send enough email. And again, looking through that lens of if you're always being helpful and you're sending important information to your prospects, things that they care about, you can send a lot of email. I think a lot of people listening probably send one email a month, maybe one a quarter. I'm hoping they do more. We typically send 2 or 3 emails a week, and we went through a launch period a little bit ago where we actually ramped that up to every day and sometimes twice a day. Our open rates went from 35% to we hit 50% on one of them. And I was trying to dissect that a little bit and wonder, like, why is that? And if you think about, again, just like the timeliness, the relevance, and the helpfulness of your content, they have more chances to see you. So it's like they get used to seeing you every day, and you become a part of their lives. And again, if there's almost always something or always something in there for them, hey, they're going to tune in.
Yeah. At the very least, I think we overthink, oh, we sent something last month, I can't possibly send something else. The majority of people didn't see it. Maybe they just saw it and they saw your logo. You're reminding yourselves. Maybe they just had a conversation, earlier in the week with a neighbor, and now they can just forward that on. Hey, this is the company I was talking about for your kitchen. Don't overthink it too much. And also don't freak out when somebody unsubscribes. If you get some unsubscribes, it means you're actually doing something.
Right.
But again, the banner over the top of that was helpful. What's helpful content?
Yes.
So they could post it. They could create a blog post. They could be sending it out to their email database. They could be posting on social media. They could be uploading to YouTube, and again, doing some of those keywords if it's a video. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I just think about, there's kind of 2 steps. There's content, the creation of it. So that's the article, the audio, the video. And then there's distribution. So your distribution is email, social media, and social media is Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. And so depending on the format of the content, post it everywhere you can, and so if you have a video, that's YouTube, that's Facebook, that's Instagram, that's LinkedIn. You embed the YouTube in the blog that you wrote about the same topic, and then you email people and you share on social and get them back to the article. So I think it really boils down to those 2 things. It's just the content piece and the distribution of it, trying to get people to see it.
Good. What are some other content titles, ideas that come to mind for times like these?
Yeah, I think you can get a little, I don't know, I'll say just more salesy with it, but you can start talking about things that people are probably feeling the pain on right now. So maybe they've noticed that, gosh, if everybody's in the home all the time, the kitchen just feels really small now. Or gosh, there were those couple of things we've been talking about for years. And man, if this is kind of a new normal, maybe we should be thinking about remodeling, in a couple of areas. And so I think it's okay to say, hey, kitchen feeling really small right now. Have you ever thought about, a design, and then work your way into, 3 design ideas for, opening up a kitchen or making it more conducive to, family games and, gatherings and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Pause
Yeah, go
there.
ahead.
I had this image in my head. Did you know people actually listen to these podcasts?
They do, really?
Yeah, they do.
Well, that's good to know.
So like literally there's people listening to this right now. And, we're 10, 12, 15 minutes in. We've shared some different ideas. I just have this overriding feeling to say and to remind you that if there's something that you've already been kind of sparked, a lot of times by listening to a podcast is just like, ooh, that's a good idea, or I could do that. Maybe it's because we dug really deep into the home office. Maybe it's, is your kitchen too small to be in, 5 reasons why you need a finished basement. These are a couple of the other ones you sent over. What can you kind of do it yourself projects right now? And hey, by the way, if you have any issues during the do it yourself, call us and let me just help you. And let me answer questions. We're experts at this and we got a little bit more time on our hands right now. Home gyms, it could be related to that. If you get kind of a spark of idea or inspiration here, it is just so important to stop the podcast and just try to implement it. Maybe record some thoughts on an audio, and maybe you have somebody in your team who could then transcribe it. But when inspiration hits, I think sometimes it's like, oh, this is a good podcast. I'm going to keep listening to it. Pause, stop, and do something with it. The reason you're listening to these podcasts is so that you take action and you implement. So if you've heard something even so far, take action on it and try it, and know that the first few times you do this, it's not going to be great. It takes, like anything, practice. If you had, well, I'm speaking for both of us, but for sure, if I came out to your job site and you gave me a hammer and you said, hey, go make this, I would be terrible at it. You give me some training, you let me practice at it, I'd get better at it. So it's the same thing when it comes to content creation. Creating content for me is pretty easy. Why? Because I've been doing it for years and years. Building things is easy for you guys. Why? Because you've been doing it for so long. But as a business owner, you need to be creating content, and a lot of times it's not natural. So if you're inspired, let's do and create. Sorry, I had to rant that. It was
No, I love it. Yeah, action is everything.
That's right. That sounds like a book. You should write a book called Action is Everything.
Well, what is it? We're the marketing. I already forgot our new name.
The marketing bad boys.
Marketing bad boys say action is everything.
Action is everything. The bad boys are actually in the news right now. The 19 late 80s, early 90s Detroit Pistons. Are you familiar with them?
A little
Young
bit.
man?
They're in the news, huh?
They're in the news because this whole Jordan documentary is out right now, and the Pistons whooped on Jordan for years and years, and then Jordan got the best of them. They got old. He got better. And it was I guess in the documentary, I haven't watched it, but the last week documentary, the Pistons, there's like 10 seconds left and they just walked off the court without shaking hands. Not a good look, Isaiah Thomas. Not a good look, Bill Lambier. So as a Michigander and a Pistons fan, they're in the news right now, but they're the bad boys. Just like us.
Just like us. I like it.
Like us.
Well, I'll have to go check that out. That sounds like a good documentary.
There's no other sports going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool. All right. So I stole some of the thunder, I guess, on some of the other content of like, is your kitchen, too small? Other reasons why you need a finished basement. So anything else that comes to mind of like other content and direction and guidance there, or even building on that whole, implement and action rant I just went on?
Yeah. I think the ideas will flow. And you listed out, a handful that we had kind of chatted about, but I think the thing to remember is you're the expert. And so sometimes we get caught up in this thought of, well, these ideas, like everybody just knows these ideas. Everybody has this knowledge, and it's because you know it. Just like the stuff we're talking about here, we're going, of course, just start cranking out content. And people are listening, going, what do you mean just crank out content? And so, but for you, you're going, of course, you could just do this, move this around and adjust this, and boom, now you've got a great setup. Whereas other people don't have that knowledge or that skill. And so just keep that in mind. Some of the things that you maybe think about or would want to talk about, they might seem overly basic in your head. That's okay. It's just because you're an expert, so it seems really basic. Share it. And you know what? If it doesn't land, that's okay. The next one will. And if you put out enough stuff, you'll start to get that feedback from people.
And another thing to kind of get them thinking is like, it's been really rainy here in Michigan the last 2 days. And good content, I think sometimes it's like, but Kyle, that there's no call to action there. Or what do you mean by that? I'm showing somebody how to do something around their home. A great piece of content. And again, I've gotten off of telling people to get on video because it paralyzes them a lot and they just don't do it, but keep striving for that. So I've been changing it to take a picture of it. So if at your house you have a downspout that goes into the ground instead of kind of out into the grass, but goes into the ground and taps into the run around the foundation. Oh, there's a lot of remodelers making fun of me right now. Kyle, it's called this. But hey, I can market. I can help you sell. I know your financials. You do you. But that thingamajig that goes in there and it taps into it. So at my house, I have standing water, and I've been thinking about lately, wow, what does it take, or how much would it be to just have those around my house so that, the water is just transported away from the house easier, better, to create a piece of content that says another rainy day here in Michigan, something that we work on with a lot of our clients, especially when we're doing additions and we have some new downspouts, is we always advise them to do this. Here's a couple of the reasons why, and here's a couple of things to look out for when you're doing it. If you walk around your house, there are so many things to point out. And also when you walk around your job sites, and this is kind of a Gary Vee thing of document the process. To your point, a lot of you guys listening and gals listening to this kind of think it's boring. It's like, I've been doing this. It's just what I do. But documenting the process and showing the steps. My wife and I have been on a kick the last week or so watching This Old House. I'm going to have a couple of those guys on my podcast. I've decided they're on my dream list. I've checked off. Okay. I've had Spencer Powell on my dream podcast list. Now I'm going to get This Old House guys, but they do such
That's the next step,
Yes. They do such a tremendous job of just showing the details. Now my wife is kind of left going, I just want to see the after, because over the years, she's so used to watching HGTV and we go from start to finish by the end of it. But there's so much detail. You can't help but watch that show and realize the depth of knowledge, their understanding of things, their teaching, their educating. And if you do that as a remodeler and you do that in your own hometown and in your trade area, and you're just an expert, you share guidance, you share ideas, and you give expertise, that will come back to you in spades. You will build relationship and know, like, and trust. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. Content. Create content that is helpful. Document your process. Show off the things that you know. Teach. Okay.
I like it. And at the end of that, I encourage people to, even if they're afraid of video, just do the point and shoot where you're not even on the camera, but you're just showing the area of the house, and then just talk behind it, and just talk like you were explaining it to a family member or friend. Just say, hey, this is what we're doing here. Oh, here's how you could solve this, or here's how you could fix this. And then I like right now as a call to action, if you do have more time, hey, if you have questions about something going on in your home that's broken or you need some advice, give me a call, text me. But to your point, you'll start to build those relationships, even if it's not work right now, it's not a signed deal. But now that person, you helped them solve a problem that was probably super easy for you to solve in 10 minutes on the phone. Now they're going to be your next customer whenever they have that next project.
It's true. Ha, I tricked you. I apologize for that. You look down thinking you have a call coming in, but it's just me interrupting this wonderful episode of Remodelers on the Rise. One, so that I laugh because most people are wondering what the heck's going on. And two, this interruption is meant to push you towards remodelerscommunity.com. There are 800 professional, wonderful remodelers who are living in community on a private Facebook group, sharing ideas, sharing best practices, asking and answering questions. If you're not part of it, go to remodelerscommunity.com and join. I promise I won't do these interruptions too often. Hope you're enjoying today's episode. Let's get back to it. And you got to have a bigger, longer term kind of view on this and a bigger picture on this. But it's another example of compound interest. You start to create this content, you start to put it out there. One, you get better at it. You think of new ideas of what to put out there. You start to get some feedback and some engagement with it. Ooh, people like that one. I should try that again. And over time, as you start to build this, you build a bit of a database. So that's what was the point of this here podcast, would you say, Spencer?
I would say we originally started with just saying, hey, you need to be creating content that's helpful. And so even in these last examples that we've used, it's, hey, I'm trying to be helpful. I'm showing somebody a quick repair. I'm willing to jump on the phone for 5 or 10 minutes. And again, use your best judgment. If you're so busy that you just can't do that, then maybe you don't need to do that.
Sure.
But yeah, I think a lot of people are going, how can I use my time effectively? And if you could build several relationships each week where in shutdown or you're not able to do stuff, you know, man, you're going to rocket back into action in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever it is.
And my brain starts moving as well. You start creating content that's truly helpful. Well, guess what? Those strategic partners that you have, those realtors, those landscape. Hey, here's a video from my friend Kyle. He just created of the just common problem that we see on homes that our buyers are looking at. There's so many different ways that this starts to spider out. So I think that the big point that I'm starting to gather from kind of the direction we took it, or kind of built that direction out, is yes, it's important to create content that's helpful right now, but side note, that's everything we should be creating. And I think the other thing is, hey, person listening to this, hey, remodeler, part of your role, part of your gig in order to build your business in 2020, and guess what, it's only gonna get more important in 2022, 24, 26, 28, is you need to figure out how to make content. It's going to just continue to be as important, if not more important, / you got to practice now, because content's going to keep getting out there, and you've got to be good at it to kind of cut through the clutter. You have the advantage that not a lot of your competitors are going to be doing this, but over time more will. So I think that's part of it, is you need to bump up on your priority list the importance of creating content that's helpful to your ideal clients.
Yeah. And that window of time where your competitors aren't doing this is shrinking fast. It's probably a 1 to 3 year window at this point where you really need to jump in and start creating it. And to go back to one of your earlier points, that this being like compound interest, you create a bunch of content right now, it'll work for you next year. It's still on YouTube. It's still on your website. You can still re-promote that. People can still find it in Google. So we have articles that we wrote 8-10 years ago that people still find today, or they found it last night at midnight, And so that's one of the coolest things I think about this form of marketing, is that people can find it ongoing, so you invest once. Yeah, go ahead.
Good. Speaking of find it, how do people find out more about you, Spencer?
Easiest way is just builderfunnel.com, but I would encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn and check us out on Instagram, just builderfunnel. We're not too hard to find. If you Google that, you'll find something. You'll find some content.
It's interesting that you went, and maybe you didn't do it strategically, but you went LinkedIn and Instagram. You didn't mention Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't mention your podcast. Was that just because you just started listing it out, or was that more, I'm putting a lot of focus on those other two platforms?
Yeah, we are.
What an amazing podcast host. I'm just hanging on every word. Ooh, what was the strategy behind that?
Strategy. Yeah. Now you want to know.
Wow.
LinkedIn has some open water right now. So we're investing a lot of time and energy there. And I've been posting a lot more frequently on that channel. And then, Instagram for us has just been more of an up and coming channel. We don't see as much just active participation on Facebook. So I generally don't throw that one out there, although we're there. But yeah, we like to hit those two channels. We do have a podcast, but you'll find out about that via LinkedIn and Instagram too. So
perfect. Yeah, LinkedIn. I guess one other side note on LinkedIn. Hey, make sure everybody listening to this, you go to your LinkedIn profile. Just make sure it's up to date, first of all, and then just a little sales tip on the end of this marketing item. When you have a new prospect come in, and maybe you see that they've got an at hobsonmatzer.com, they work for a manufacturer. You see their domain name. Especially then, to click and search them on LinkedIn, and before you call them back, to do a little bit of research on that prospect. Click on LinkedIn, they're an engineer. Hey, remodeler, do you sell and approach an engineer different than you do a stay-at-home mom? Yes, right? Is that good information to have in your back pocket before you call them back? Yes. Is there potential for mutual connections, which can help you build know, like, and trust in the sales process? Can you see what other people think about them and the recommendations they're leaving? So you mentioned LinkedIn. I just did a little class yesterday on the initial phone call that remodelers have with homeowners. And remember to do a little bit of research before you call them back, because it gives you just a tremendous amount of information, and it can help.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip. And maybe, I don't know if you were planning on wrapping us up here, but I'll toss in one more content idea if we have time for that.
Here's what we're going to do.
Okay.
Spencer, to wrap things up, do you have one more content idea and then we'll be wrapped up?
Oh man, that was a perfect segue. Yes, I just have one more.
Hit it.
It's still content. It's just a different format. So webinars. You maybe have sat in on a bunch of these over the last 4 or 5 weeks. I think this is a great strategy for remodelers right now. You put together 30-minute slide deck, about something you already know, your own remodeling process, and you have people register for it. And you just create a little page that says, hey, we're doing a webinar, sign up, name, email. Then you promote that just like we talked about all show, social media, your email list, your website, you point people to it, they register. Now, here's the cool thing about webinars, and I'll try to keep this concise since we're wrapping up, but you record it. It's 30 to 45 minutes. People are engaged with you. And then at the end, you can offer kind of that next segue into a design consultation for anybody that maybe want to take that next step. Usually you'll get a percentage, of people that do want to do that. Everyone else won't. Usually you get about a 40, 50% attendance rate on your webinar. So say you get 25 people signed up, you'll have 12 stay on and they'll actually attend. And then the webinar's over and you might have 2 or 3 people that book a meeting. Well, now you've just gotten some meetings. Now you can follow up with everyone that didn't book a meeting and just say, hey, thanks so much for attending. By the way, you can still take advantage of booking a meeting. You might pick up a couple more. And then everyone that didn't attend, those 13, you say, hey, sorry you missed this. I know things are crazy right now. We recorded it. Here's the link to the recording. Some of them go back and watch it. They might also book a meeting. And now here's the best part. That webinar sits on your website forever, and people have to register to download the recording. And now you just get leads coming in through this little micro funnel, and people will take you up on that offer. So
yeah,
that's my last
and that's
idea.
that's kind of how it spiders out, and you're building your database up. And I pulled up, you guys can go to McManus, a client of mine, Paul McManus, McManus, McManus kitchenandbath.com. One thing Paul's been doing over the last few weeks is just hosting a weekly design design hour. He's actually been bringing on some other remodelers around the country. But, I watched part of, I didn't watch it all, but I watched part of it. There was people that on there that
all of this episode of yours. So
right. I mean, there's only 3 out of the, however many that are still hanging on here at the end. But I was watching part of it, and I was just smirking while I did it because I'm like, this is good. Like, all they're doing is they're pulling up designs and photos and sharing, like, hey, my design, what I really like about this is this, but I wonder if they consider doing this with a backsplash. When we work with homeowners, what we've been doing a little bit more lately is this. And if I'm in the market for remodeling my kitchen or bath, and I'm listening to their design eye, and they're talking through the process and how they go about deciding things and designing things, it was awesome. And, to your point, it's just them teaching what you would typically teach when you're sitting with a prospect. Don't overthink it. So if you go to McManusKitchenBath.com, you click around a little bit, you're going to find like the title he's using for that and how he's approaching it. Register for that, consume it a little bit, and then realize, oh, I could do something like this. And if you do it and you get 2 people to sign up, don't, put your head down and walk into the corner and be like, oh, that was a failure. No, what that just did was springboard you to version 2.0. You never know what's going to go out with those 2 people, but you're going to learn so much by doing it. And then you're getting to the point, what you just said, Spencer, of look at how this spiders out. Look at how this can be such an asset.
Yeah. And even if you get 2 people on the first one, you still have the recording and it'll work for you forever. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, before we meet in person, watch this webinar. It's getting into a lot of the design ideas that we have. Or, hey, before we get on that Zoom consultation, take a look at this. I think based on the pictures you sent over, a lot of these examples we're showing are some of the design direction we take you. Just a lot of different ways to use it. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Spencer. It was a pleasure as always.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Hey, Bailey, listening to this, we'd like our exit music to be Bad Boys, What You Gonna Do? Maybe we'll actually put that at the beginning and be like, if you want to know what this is about, you got to listen to this episode.
That'd be cool.
I also think it's kind of funny because I would say I'm kind of I was the captain of the basketball and baseball team. So I'm kind of tough, but I was also the captain of the golf team. But I like to lead with the basketball and baseball team, but it is kind of funny because I would say the two of us are probably not huge risk
Pretty,
takers.
pretty straight and narrow.
Is that fair?
Guys.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Which is why it works, right?
There we go. The bad boys. Somebody's one of these longtime remodelers on the rise listeners. We're both size large shirts, so we'd like some custom made bad boys shirts, and we'll wear them the next time we do a podcast together.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Do you think somebody would actually do that? Would actually have so much fun and be like, you know what? Between the two of you, I've gotten so much value from your content. I am going to have some fun because I would laugh my butt off to get something like that.
That would be awesome, and it would be even better. Just I'm balding for sure, and I feel like we just got that rocking for us. Too. Kind of the high hairline, two those faces with bad boys up on the.
Is that what we call it? A high hairline? I'm balding. That's what I call it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you just call it a high. I got a little bit of a high hairline. No, I'm balding. That's what's going on.
I mean, I know I'm balding back here, but I don't know. This has been this way for a while, so. I could be joking with myself, and I'm pretty sure I got the balding side of my family gene. So
there you go. And one more little nugget of value. We're having fun. Like if somebody created those shirts, it would be hilarious. Put Spencer on the back of the one, or Powell, and then Hunt on the back. My favorite number is 3, so you put number 3 in the back.
I'm 2, so that would work out pretty well.
Bingo. But anyways. The thought there is we don't surprise and delight enough. That is fun. Like what I just described is fun. I sometimes get things in the mail where it's just out of the blue, like somebody heard something, or one of my clients or a long-term client or a colleague of mine like sends something, and it's just a lot of fun. And sometimes doing that in our marketing, like, you're connected with one of your past clients on Facebook. You see something cool they did. You see an interest they have, and you surprise them with that bottle of wine. You surprise them with that little sticker to that resort that they love. You surprise them with a little $25 gift card to Brighton Bar and Grill because you saw that's your favorite restaurant. That's fun. And it could just be, hey, I saw that on Facebook. I was thinking about you. I thought I'd love to just send this to you. Hope you're doing well. That type of stuff. You talk about compound interest and know, like, and trust. So make sure you're having fun in your marketing. Don't be shy about doing, surprises like that. It's a good use of your hard-earned dollars towards marketing. All right.
Yeah.
I can't help it. I just it was just playful at the end there, but I'm like, that's value. Keep striving to deliver value to your prospects, your ideal clients. It will work out in the end.
Hey, and on that same note, we went with socks for our fun thing, and so we'll give out some socks, and they're just a little bit different, But to your point, make it specific, to a person if you know something about them, and otherwise just look around for inspiration. I didn't think of the idea. I got some Google socks, thought they were cool. I'm like, let's make some.
Yeah, we should do that. Cool. So, there's nothing. The good book says there's nothing new under the sun, so that's an example of that.
Yeah, just
all right, man. That's right. All right, catch you later. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kyle.